Okay. All right. Get out of that. And let's let me keep that open. Okay. So good morning, Arabella. How are you today?
Morning. I'm very well, thank you.
Awesome.
Had a
So
morning walk.
the purpose of my study is to discover themes in the discerning of female apostles. So something that you probably don't know is that I'm also speaking with 5 apostolic men, because I need to I need to see what are the differences between men and women.
Oh, interesting.
In terms of how that discernment process works. Okay, so that's just something new. And there's also I mentioned on the letter that there will be a
Follow-up call?
having a public meeting of people involved, people who've done the surveys, people who've been interviewed. So you're not identified as someone who's been interviewed, but come on and just to discuss and looking with the group, if possible, to come to consensus over ideas worth exploring. So it looks like I've done. So it looks like I've done some research. Yeah. Okay, so so along your journey, because of our previous conversations, I'm aware that you identify as an apostle, as an apostle. So, what have been some key moments, epiphanies, or revelations in your personal and spiritual development?
Related to
apostleship.
Myself an apostle. Okay. Well, I'm probably going to answer one of your next questions, but looking back, I've always loved St. Paul. He's been my role model.
Okay.
So if you ask about biblical leaders that I would model myself on, then it's been Paul for a very long time. For example, as you know, I grew up charismatic Catholic. And so when you get confirmed as a Catholic, you confirmation is the point. So it's many years post-baptism, and it's the point at which you become an official member of the church, but also you get prayed for to receive greater outpouring of the Holy Spirit, confirmation. So that's part of it. And you have to choose your own patron saint. Don't know if you knew that. And so, and that saint's name becomes then part of your name, which you could use if you wish. So I actually have Paul as one of my names, because I chose St. Paul to be my own patron saint. And usually, I mean, basically, so you walk up the line and you hand the bishop your little piece of paper that's got your patron saint on. And he said, "I confirm you," and then looked up in surprise because I'd chosen a man's name, which is never done. But everyone else had chosen, you know, Teresa or Helen or, you know, a great female saint, Mary. But Paul was the one that I wanted, because he's the one that I identified with strongly. So I was allowed to do that.
Okay.
And I don't know if I'm answering your question. Epiphanies.
Moments. Revelations. How did you know? How did you know? How do you know?
Well, I think, I mean, you're a part of that. So I don't think I would necessarily have owned the title unless you hadn't been thinking about this and also said to me that you think I'm an apostle? And then I looked at myself and my inclinations, my desire to be a movement catalyst, vision from God for a specific people group, which I'm pursuing and which I have pursued over 7 years. So I think there's something about dogged persistence, which is in my personality, but also maybe in an apostle who just has a call and looks towards that goal and won't give up come what may. And what else? Those are two of the features.
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah.
So no flashing lights from heaven, just a that adds up.
Yeah, I think basically everything I was already planning to do and working towards seemed to fit. And then when you said, looks like you're an apostle, I said, yeah, well, that probably makes sense. And it also makes sense when I look back at my journey with God, because of Paul having been my role model for such a long time. So,
okay.
Yeah.
All right. So, describe some key signs, wonders, and miracles that God has given you.
I have to go way back for that, which is something that I'm sad about. That's another conversation. But back before I started trying, I did have a couple of miracles in quick succession. So there was a lady who was really ill in bed with a fever. She was the next door neighbor's sister and had come from a village to visit and got really ill. And I had very basic Hindi at that point, went to visit her and tried to understand what was wrong. And I did understand that she had been cursed. And so I didn't really have enough Hindi to pray in Hindi. I just said, I'm going to pray in English. So I broke the curse in the name of Jesus and then sort of went away. Came back the next day to visit her and she'd gone because she was totally better.
Awesome.
She got up and walked out. Yeah. So that was the first one. And then within a year or two, again, another just a short prayer that was prayed by the side of the road for a lady's son, and he wasn't even with me, but he had epilepsy and he'd had it for years and years. And I just said to the lady, the Lord Jesus can heal your son. Can I pray? I was on my way out of her house, so I was standing by the road with my bike helmet on, and again, I just prayed in the name of Jesus, and he has to this day never had another fit, as far as I know. So that was pretty cool.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So those are two. Yeah.
Yep. Okay. So that's really a an exorcism, really, wasn't it, for the first one? And exorcism. I don't know if it's dealing with a curse. Is that something demonic?
Say that again.
Anyway, significant miracles, awesome. Yeah, so I asked you that because in my definition of an apostle, I've got planting churches or movements of churches doing signs and wonders and establishing structures, as well as teaching other people to do the same. So so far you meet the categories.
Well, worries me that I haven't done that recently, but that's another issue, and that's something I'm talking to God about. So
okay. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Have you ever had personal revelations from or of Jesus?
I mean, yeah, it depends what you mean. I mean, presumably not the everyday sort. I've never
some
seen
people never have a revelation from Jesus, so no, there is no everyday sort. What give me
I've never seen him, but
never
he talks to me every day.
Okay. Yeah, and does he talk back?
Yeah, he talks to me every day.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I've had a like, if you mean sort of wham bam encounters, I've had a few that have been significant, and I think the recollection of them continues to be significant. And then I've had a countless number of experiencing the presence of the Holy Spirit and hearing from God. So
okay.
I mean, my call away from India into Indonesia was one of those very significant encounters.
Okay. So
It
tell me
wasn't
about.
yeah, it was not a fall on the floor moment, but it was probably the clearest that I've ever heard God speak to me. And it was just in the form of a thought that came completely out of left field. And the thought was in the second person. You need to be open to relocating.
Okay.
The exact words. And with that thought, complete peace about leaving India for the first time ever. And I could imagine myself leaving, and it felt totally peaceful. And that was totally shocking to me because I had just committed to being there for another 5 years at that point. I just started a PhD that was based in the town where I lived.
Yeah.
I was researching their spoken Hindi. So I was planning to be very much focused there. And but it was very striking. And after a couple of hours, I come to the conclusion that that was the Holy Spirit. And then I started praying more, God, if that's you, I need to, can you tell me? I need a bit of a confirmation.
Yeah.
And then I was asking him, is that you? He said, I'm giving you new nations. I'm giving you new peoples.
Yep.
And then I felt the presence of the Holy Spirit in my body. And I was asking him where. So where, the first two countries that came into my mind, I had been discussing with somebody during the day. I was like, no, I'm getting confused. So I sort of tried to empty my brain of previous thoughts and just ask God where. The first country that came into my mind was Indonesia. And there were 4 others. And in Indonesia, I'd never thought of going to at all in my life ever.
Mm-hmm.
And then later that day, I didn't want to tell my immediate leaders because I just told them I'd be in India for another 5 years. But I was speaking to another wise leader and I said, I think he's calling me somewhere else. And I think it's Indonesia. She said, no, just before you said that, I knew it was going to be Indonesia. So both of us were just kind of holding on to each other going, ah! And that was around about May or June 2015. So that was a 7-year journey to actually get to Indonesia from that point. But after that, I said, yes, God, I will. Yeah. Very significant.
Yeah. That is. Okay. So you already answered question 4. Question 5. What gifts or qualities associated with being an apostle do you see in yourself or have others observed in you?
So the word trailblazer is something that I identify with and which other people have said of me, pioneer. I love pioneering. I don't like being told what to do. I would much rather figure it out for myself. It's not that I don't appreciate wise advice, I do, but I prefer to try first.
Yep.
And
I understand that.
Yeah. So and I know that this is slightly unusual because people tell me that I'm very brave and they can't believe what I'm doing, and I don't consider myself to be terribly brave. I feel like I'm just doing what I do. This is me being me. That's how I feel. A little bit brave. And what else? I'm a natural leader. I love leading. I love making decisions. Personality-wise, I'm DC on the disc scale. So the D is the big picture, visionary leader. C is the details person. So I guess that's kind of an interesting combination. And I enjoy both. But the D would be the kind of leadership.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
One. Yeah. Yeah. There might be more. Those are the ones that come to mind. Love going to new places, kind of forging away. Like the idea of, I mean, that's why I chose the name Matic, because the pickaxe that breaks up hard ground. So the idea of creating a path that others can follow and making the way easier for others to follow is very exciting to me. Yeah. Explorers and stuff. Yeah. I mean, I'm not really into exploring for exploring's sake, really, that much. Maybe that's not true. Maybe I just don't like jungles, but I do. I do like going to new countries and new cities. But when I was looking for a place,
all those things you just mentioned, I mean, that's, I mean, we certainly see in you, and it certainly, for us, fills out the picture. Yeah. Yeah, and the fact that you want to go to the complete boondocks of
yeah.
only Beamer. I mean, that requires a calling and a half to go to Beamer, I tell you.
Yeah. I looked for the place where there wasn't anybody. And that's the thing. I think that's part of being an apostle.
All right, let's just go to the next one. And you've probably answered this in part already, but what role did others play in discerning your apostleship?
Yeah, I think others have affirmed me as a pioneer and a trailblazer, and also as a leader at various points. And also I've had a few rough leadership experiences where I've worked out how not to do it.
From the bad example of others, you mean?
No, from me doing it badly.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, so maybe it's great to have come through that. Hopefully learned a few things.
Yeah.
Yeah, but definitely that's been affirmed in me. And then I think, I mean, and I strongly identified with the Apostle Paul since I was a teenager. And then I think it wasn't really until meeting you that I would have been comfortable to call myself an apostle.
Yeah. Okay. This is not one of the questions, but I'm just wondering, does it help you to articulate that truth?
Yeah, I think it does. And I think if you hadn't said it first, I would have been shy to say it. From my church background, it's not, I know this is one of your next questions, it's not done, really. So I think I wouldn't have, and I don't even think that's to do with being a woman. I think just, yeah, from a background.
Yeah, there's cultural, there's cultural issues, and then let's not even get into being a woman. It's like, It's
Yeah.
the double whammy right there.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, the British culture, Catholic background, and
Yeah.
female. And I think female for me would be the least of the three.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think, yes, it does help me. And also, as I say it, I don't know still if I'd be comfortable saying it to everybody, because it sounds like you're bigging yourself up in a way, making yourself sounds a bit pretentious to me. And I would be careful, because I don't know what other people, whether they have that understanding or not, of the fivefold ministry and, you know, modern day apostles, and whether there are lots of them or a few. That would play into it as well, because they might believe in apostles but think that they have to be kind of amazing and
Yes.
hugely successful, you know, before you can actually call somebody an apostle. So, you know, can you call yourself an apostle when you haven't done much yet? I think I'm still feeling shy about that in certain contexts, but it does help me that you call me an apostle, that I can identify with that. And I think it helps me, even like our earlier conversation, think about, right, well, maybe I need to read this book and work out how many of the traits that I've fully developed and how many I need to keep working on. And yeah, just grow into the role.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
helps.
I think for me, articulating who I was helpful, because then I could lean into the gift. And when I started leaning into the gift finally, I saw significant change in a short amount of time. And that's why I think it's important to name it. And that's why when God shows me people, and frankly, it's always women. So I'm not really sure what the story is there, but God has shown me, I think there's power and responsibility in naming it.
Yeah, I think part of it, and maybe we can talk about this offline, is that I feel in some senses like a failure. I mean, it'd be too much to say like a failed apostle, but the failure, particularly for not having used my healing gifting in a long time, and various other things. So various categories of failure. So I think that makes it harder to own the role. I have to overcome all of that. You know?
Yeah, and as you said earlier, like there's this whole cultural view of what an apostle is that we too have to wrestle with and deal with. Like you said before, well, you know, like I look at myself as a late bloomer. You know, my fruit in terms of like I've never seen a movement. You know, I've discipled a few Muslim people, but not many. So yeah, we move on. We keep moving forward.
Yeah.
All right, let's just keep going. What was the time span and process between personal identification as an apostle and apostolic fruit in your life?
It's probably going to be a negative number, because I think there has been apostolic fruit in my life. But I've only recently identified as an apostle. So
okay.
Yeah. What would be, I mean, I was even thinking about this when I read the questions in advance. For example, at high school, Catholic high school, but most people weren't that interested in God. I went to the headmistress and told her that I wanted to start a Christian union, and got permission to speak in all of the assemblies.
Wow.
So I can't remember how old I was, but I wasn't that old. I think I was 13, 14. Taught myself to play the guitar, went to speak in every assembly and on my own, and invited people to join the Christian Union. And yeah, we did it, and I led it for several years, and it was
Wow.
good. And I, looking back, I probably had too tight a grasp on it, and I could have let other people lead a bit.
Yeah.
But anyway, just an example of, had a vision. Probably got to put it in my heart. I can't really remember specifically, but I just knew that it was important, wanted to do that, and went ahead and did it. And possibly my brother lost his faith over that because he got bullied. So that's a negative outcome. But
He got bullied because you ran the Christian Union.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that's, that's a hard outcome. Anyway, the Lord will bring him back. But that's an example. Anyway, I think that's kind of pioneering, isn't it? Kind of. See, I'm I'm being tentative. I think that was apostolic.
Look, but I mean, to me, it's a good indication, isn't it? Really, like how old were you then? 13 or 14?
Yeah.
All right. So, have you suffered for your calling? How so?
Not much, I think. Yeah, certainly not much if you compare it with the persecution that some suffer, I think.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Just personal sacrifice in terms of I am going to move to Indonesia, even though I'm single, and even though I told God I didn't want to move here single, and I don't understand why he hasn't given me a life partner yet, but I'm just going to obey him anyway. That's probably the hardest part.
Yep.
Yeah. I don't know if you can call that suffering.
well, it is.
It's an element of personal sacrifice. Yeah.
Yeah. If we're required to wash dishes and we don't like it, it's suffering, right?
Yeah.
Okay, you've already talked about the Apostle Paul, question 9. So maybe do you want to say more about your identification with Paul?
Yeah, it was just interesting for me looking at this question and realizing that it's been, I feel quite emotional actually now. It's been a long journey of having him as a role model.
Yeah.
And so definitely as a teenager, I mean, 14 was when I got confirmed. So before that, long before that, reading Acts and the letters, and I was still a Catholic at this point, charismatic Catholic, and until now. So that's 30 years, and still I look, if you ask about biblical leaders, then he's just the one.
Yep.
Stand out. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Question 10. How did your background, religion, church, organization influence your, in brackets, non-identification as an apostle? You've touched on this earlier. Yeah.
I mean, I think from the Catholic perspective, I mean, I haven't read the catechism in this regard, but there were 12 apostles, and then one of them hanged himself, and there was another one, and then we got Paul as an extra, but that was pretty much it. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And what? But you've been you're associated with YWAM for a long time. Yeah. So, what about in your experience of YWAM? How did that go? I think, and also from my my second church, which was charismatic evangelical. I mean, I think it would be true to say that having had teaching on fivefold ministry, I would have looked at that list and I may have said, okay, I might have apostolic gifting. I think I might have, I can't exactly remember, but I think I would have said, yeah, I'm definitely not a prophet. I think I also have teaching gifting. I'm certainly not a pastor. So I think probably previously I would have said, yeah, I think I might have apostolic gifting, but I would never have actually said I am an apostle. It's something about giving yourself the title. And various Pentecostal churches, the apostle TB Joshua and apostle this and apostle that. And there's something maybe about being British that we just really don't like that. To give yourself that title seems so pretentious. So
yeah. Oh, look, I think I'm of English descent, so I identify fully with your answer.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think because of for me, a number of people, particularly among narcissistic Pentecostal leaders, who use the title apostle, and it's just repugnant.
Okay.
Mm.
Yeah. So that all those things would have, I might have identified apostolic gifting, but I would never have given myself the role. That makes sense.
Yeah. So apostolic. I am apostolic.
Yeah.
That's and I think that's where most people go, because it's safe. You don't, it's a safe option.
I'm gonna fill up my coffee while you ask the next question.
Sure. Okay, so who are your female apostle role models? Do you know? Seen any?
Yeah, I struggled with this question a bit. I think there is one who I have a sort of a complicated relationship with, because triggers all of my mother issues. So I tend to kind of keep a bit of a distance, but she is an apostle, and she's just highly focused on training others to do DMM. You may have come across her. She has just started she has a Facebook group. She sends out emails. She writes books, and she's just started a podcast.
Anderson.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, you know her?
I do. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'm hoping to interview her.
Cool. Yeah.
She finally responded to my email the other day.
Oh, fun. Yeah.
Okay.
So
okay. Can I say hello?
Yeah.
From you?
Yeah, you can. Yeah, I know her. I know her fairly well, because we were in India contemporaneously. She was my leader. Like not in the same area, but she was like, woo, up the hierarchy. So and I visited their house in where they live as well.
Yeah.
I won't say it, but
yeah.
But you probably know. Yeah, but she's so she's kind of a role model that I sort of keep from at a distance. Also, she's so highly focused that it kind of scares me and puts me off a little bit. And I think I can't do that, or maybe I don't want to do that because it seems so uncompromising. And I think that I can't, or I don't want to. But that's, I don't know, something I'm working through.
How old is she?
Not that old.
Okay.
If you read her emails, she actually just had a birthday, I think just turned 60. She's cool, and I respect her highly.
Yeah.
Okay. And her husband's lovely as well.
Okay. All right.
Why don't you go and when you're going to be in the same city as each other. Why don't you just do it in person? That would be much better.
Oh, I don't know where she lives.
Well, it's where you're going for the nations.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah.
Okay. Okay. Well, that's not a bad idea.
Mm.
All right. Anyway, so what differences and similarities do you see, if any, between female and male apostles?
I don't know that many female apostles. Ilsa, quiet and understated. I think the only difference I can really see or imagine is that it takes women longer to own the role and not be afraid to put themselves out there as a leader,
No.
particularly as a leader of men. I think it just takes longer.
I have not ever used the term apostle with Ilsa.
Okay, interesting.
Intentionally.
Interesting.
I don't want to frighten her. No pressure. Just do the job. And she's doing the job. And she has all the strong indications of being an apostle. And and that's the main thing, right? Yeah, and because of her very Protestant background, like I probably will drop it on her during the interview, just to see how she responds, because I'm pretty sure I know how she'll respond initially. Yeah.
Fun.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, okay. So similarities between male and female apostles. Can you? I mean, from the ones one female apostle, male apostles.
Well, they just have all the characteristics that we've discussed earlier in the call. So all similarities. Strong leader, not afraid to go the distance, dogged persistence. Face set towards the goal, pull other people with them, somebody that people want to follow. Pioneering into new areas, either physical or metaphorical. I can't see any difference between men and women in that regard.
Okay. So what kind of processes would you suggest for discerning female apostles? How does it work?
Yeah. I don't have a very developed thought system on this. I haven't yet read your book. I think, but in addition to what I said in my survey response, maybe doing one of those questionnaires about the fivefold ministry is helpful, because you can because that it seems to be objective, it's sort of quasi objective if it's a questionnaire, and then you get the results and it says, oh, I've got like a really high score on apostle and very low score on pastor. Oh, that's really interesting. Maybe I've got an apostolic gifting. So I think that's kind of helpful, because it seems to be objective, and that would help give someone an idea. Oh, maybe I am actually gifted in this area. So that's, and then as well as becoming aware of, I think you need to know what an apostle. Firstly, you need to know that there are modern day apostles. I mean, if you don't have that concept, then it's very hard to see yourself as one. So seeing what an apostle is, what are the characteristics of an apostle? So if it's not just the 12 plus 1, looking at the characteristics that they possessed and seeing, okay, well, there are people today that have the same characteristics, and maybe that could be me. So I think
Yeah,
some teaching.
okay, so actually putting it out there, this is an apostle, and then, you know, a list
Yeah.
of characteristics and saying, well, is this you? So giving women the permission.
Everybody, I think. Yeah, but you're asking
Yeah,
about women specifically.
yeah,
So yeah,
yeah,
but I think in the context of, I mean, let's not single out apostle, let's focus on all five. I
yeah,
think
yeah,
just
yeah,
easier to
absolutely.
easier because it's because they're all in the Bible together. So it's less intimidating. And
Yeah,
also then it doesn't make apostle seem more important because it's also not more important
yeah,
than the other four. So I think it would be good to give teaching about the five. And then another piece of teaching that I haven't yet had and I'm not clear on is whether everybody has one of the five, like, or, and I've read recently that it's not the case. So you might not have one of those five roles. So that's also confusing to me. So some teaching about what those what the fivefold ministry is, what the
yeah,
roles actually are, and how they're meant to function in the
yeah.
church to them. That would be helpful, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Where are we? So the question is, how would you identify a woman as an apostle? I think you already covered that elsewhere, but
Hmm.
tell me again. How would you identify a woman as an apostle?
Well, I think we need a good definition of what an apostle is,
Yeah,
who an apostle is, and what they do, and
yeah,
then whether or not they identify with the title, it's looking at who they are and what they do, and does it fit? You know, if you've got a checklist, and maybe the checklist has 12 points on, and then that's for you to tell us how many of those 12 points need to be fully identified in order to say, okay, that's definitely an apostle. Like if someone has 10 of the 12,
yeah,
that's still an apostle or not. And then partly that depends, as we were discussing offline, whether it's nature or nurture. If they have currently 10 of the 12, can the other two be grown
yeah.
or not? Yeah, so I think we need to start with a decent definition, and then it shouldn't be that tricky.
Yeah.
To look at somebody's characteristics and actions and see whether they line up.
Okay. So would you recommend any specific training for apostles?
I can't think of any. I don't know of any specific training for apostles. I mean, other than DMM training, but that's for more than just apostles, isn't it? That's for
Yeah, although DMM training is for people working apostolic. I mean, anyone can work apostolically, and I think that's the plan. Yeah. So I personally hold to the doctrine that only God appoints only a few people into the fivefold who are meant to train everybody else. So, you know, so the apostle trains a whole bunch of people to work apostolically, you know, like doing DMM. You know, and prophets train people to work prophetically. Evangelists train people to work evangelistically. Pastors train people how to look after people.
Okay.
Yeah.
Does that mean we're all teachers then? Which is the only one.
We all can teach. We all can teach. Doesn't mean we're a God ordained gifted. We are a God gifted teacher, but we can all teach. I mean, like one of the qualifications for eldership is to be able to teach. I mean, you know, I did a teaching degree and I can teach. So, you know, but it's not my natural gifting.
Yeah. Whereas I would teach anyone any topic and it would make my heart sing. I just love teaching.
Yeah. Yeah. What about like you've done YWAM, uh,
Mm.
any courses within YWAM that you've done that you'd recommend for um, apostolic women? We're talking about the 18-year-old, the 20-year-old.
Well, I think, I mean, the biggest thing that holds us back is our own character and brokenness. So I think whatever you can do to get healed up and develop a character that's like Jesus is beneficial. So, I mean, DTS is good. Any of those discipleship courses are good for that.
Yeah.
It's not specific to apostleship, but I think it's the most useful thing.
Yeah.
Because if you're called to be an apostle, you've got the gift anyway. It's a question of being able to use it wisely. And if I compare myself now with 10 or 20 years ago, I'm grateful for the character shaping that I've been through, that I think will allow me to be a better apostle than I would have been, regardless
So,
of training. Yeah.
can I just clarify something then? So
Yeah.
you've always identified with Paul.
Yes.
And so what I've heard you say, that since you've been a sincere believer, you've always, or maybe from an early age, you've understood that you are. No, I've even lost track of my own question. Hold on.
Yeah.
No, it's completely gone. I'll have to ask you again later.
That's okay.
Yeah, just it's gone. Okay, all right. So, have you got anything else that you would like to add in regards into discerning apostles, and like to say, like your mentor that you mentioned before, the woman.
Yeah.
Someone like her, it's to me, it's just dead obvious.
Yeah.
What about when I'm teaching at a DTS, and I've got a young woman in front of me, like how can I know apart from revelation? How can I discern?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I just go back to my previous answer. You need a list of characteristics and
Yeah,
then just see if you can spot them. So, but then you have to know, okay, so if someone, so pioneering and trailblazing, not being afraid to do something new. So what might that look like in the context of an 18-year-old who's sitting in a classroom? Oh, it might be someone who's not afraid to ask a difficult question.
yeah,
Because it shows they're not afraid what people think of them.
yeah.
They might be in any context. It's partly because I'm an extrovert, but I will always be the first one to ask a question in every single context
Me
that I'm
too.
in.
I'll
Yeah.
race you.
Yeah, and I have to bite my tongue and sit on my hands to stop myself from being the first one to ask the question. So that might be an indication. If there's any room for someone to start anything new on, you find out, oh, so and so's just started an early morning prayer meeting. Well, that won't be me, but somebody took initiative to do something. Well, they may be an apostle.
So in my book, one of the things that I point to is along the journey, God gives apostles experience through starting things. Like it doesn't even have to be spiritual, but it's involved in pioneering something, starting something like your EU group,
Christian Union at school.
Christian Union group, or whatever.
Yeah.
There is something that happens in a process there, when you start making things, I think.
Yeah. I agree. So I think that if you meet somebody who's done that, that's a clear indication.
Yeah.
Mm.
All right. Well, it's under an hour, and I think we're about done.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome.
Have you remembered your other question yet? You wanted
No,
to
no,
clarify.
it just went completely out of my head. So maybe God didn't want that question.
You can always
All right.
ask me later.
Yeah, I may well do that. All right. Thank you for your time, and I
You're
will.
welcome.
I don't know how to actually. How do I? Oh, there it is. There. End.
You
All
can
right.
just end the meeting and it'll stop recording.
Okay. All right. Thank
Okay.
you.
Bye.
Bye.